Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Prashanti Devi from the Department of Environmental Sciences and Management. So, I am happy to share with you my thoughts on remote sensing and GIS for environmental health. Uh, so, as we all know, in the recent years, the topic or subject remote sensing and GIS has been gaining much popularity among researchers, and one of the area of application is environmental and health. So, in environmental and health, we try to relate a lot of environmental issues as causative factors for health problems among the human population. So let us see what are the environmental issues both at the global and the national level. So one of the major issues that concern the environment is depletion of natural resources, water pollution, air pollution, groundwater pollution, toxic chemical spillage, pollution and soil pollution, a depletion of the ozone layer, global warming, and loss of biodiversity due to depletion of natural resources, which leads to a lot of wildlife extinction, species extinction, fragmentation, and loss of natural habitats. And other larger issues nuclear waste and radiation issues and radiation related illness. So, combating these environmental issues itself is a bigger problem, and both at the national and global scales, we have a lot of conventions and we have a lot of global discussions and forums which deal with minimizing the pollution and establishing permissible limits and various kinds of activities and alternate measures are being discussed and experimented and put forth to reduce the impact of pollution on the environment itself. But when we take the causative consideration as to each and every individual environmental aspect which impacts the human health and human population, largely we talk about climate change. So climate change is now in the recent years become another word for environmental issues. So everywhere people are discussing about climate change, the impact of climate change, and what the climate change has done to a national development and national economy as such. So climate change over the past decades, we have been witnessing global warming, increased hot years, and probably the past 2 years, we have also witnessed a lot of changes in the climate, maybe because of the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. But other than that, we have a lot of shifts and variations in our monsoons, seasons, summer and winter patterns. Okay, so this itself plays a very important role in the development of or in the emergence of new diseases and species, and in introducing new diseases into the environment. The another aspect that we have to consider is the conservation of species, which is another global environmental issue. So a lot of species are being conserved in terms of flora and fauna, so that we can stop the extinction of species, rather keystone species, or very important indicator species. Then again, we know we are facing a huge energy crisis, which where we are largely dependent on fossil fuels, and this energy crisis itself has made us more vulnerable to the threats of the environment and environmental related issues. And to combat the energy crisis, we have also been exploiting the natural resources, and the exploitation of natural resources has in turn led to loss of biodiversity and loss of natural habitat, uh, shifting patterns in our biodiversity, shifting patterns in our vegetation and ecological niches, and so on. Again, we have the nuclear power, which we know has a very high potential, but every day debates are being conducted as to what the problems are associated with the nuclear issues, and where we have to act upon, and where we have to allow these nuclear issues, both in terms of economy and in terms of environment. Then we know overpopulation due to migration, and that itself, overpopulation leads to a lot of resources depletion, and improper allocation of resources as to urban resource allocation and rural resources allocation, and all these, and the pressure these overpopulation and increased migration has led to the resource consumption in the planet. So that is one of the major issues we are facing right now, and all these has led to two major aspects. One is pollution, the other one is waste management. So pollution, not only we are talking about air pollution, water pollution, pollution on the whole itself, it's an outcome of population and the related anthropogenic impacts of both our economy and our development. So here we are talking about air pollution, water pollution, land pollution, and specifically land pollution. A major aspect is waste management. So population increase, population migration, consumption of resources has led to waste generation, and this waste generation has not only led to harmful gases into the atmosphere, but also toxic waste into the water bodies. E-waste is another major problem, biomedical waste, and household waste generation, household waste transport, dumping, management, and segregation itself is a large problem. So all these causative factors has day by day only increased, and both the researchers and the authorities are looking into how these considerations, causative factors can be minimized, and how the environment can be conserved, environment can be saved, and through that how the environmental threats to the human population can be minimized. So that is a major task at hand, and that is a challenge that the entire globe is facing right now. So uh, so how are these linked to human health? So environment, so far environment itself was seen as a problem, and all the resources depletion and population exploitation, and the pollution and waste generation itself was a threat to the environment. So people have been focusing on how to minimize, or how to bring about different regulations and laws to minimize the pollution, mitigate the pollution, and reduce the waste generation from a society or from a community as such. But recent years, we have to acknowledge the fact that all these causative factors have led to an increase in disease, and introduction of new diseases into the human population. So how these new diseases are coming about, how these diseases are prolonging over seasons and over the seasonal patterns, how, and what causes the failure in combating these diseases. So this is what we are looking at. And environment itself, the environmental pollution and environmental degradation itself has led to the loss of healthy livelihood in terms of resources, in terms of food, in terms of healthy living condition, a natural environment, clean air, clean water, and all that. And we have lost a lot of resources, both for consumption, food consumption, and sustainable living. And also improper waste disposal issues are there, and the management of these rising waste day to day, the amount of waste that is being generated is increased, and day to day management plan is changing for reduction of waste disposal, and also for the management of waste, in terms of segregation, in terms of disposal, safe disposal, and conversion of waste to an alternate form. Again, we can see that we have lost a lot of native species, both in terms of plants, animals, insects, and birds. And the importance of these species in resource management, and the importance of these species in germination or in maintaining the ecosystem balance itself, has been lost over the past few years. Again, we have been observing temperature and rainfall pattern changes, and these temperature and rainfall pattern changes, these temperature and rainfall changes themselves have led to introduction of new species, and adaptation of already available vector species, and introduction of new diseases in the environment. And overcrowding, we of late we have come to know the issues of overcrowding. We have come to know the issues of sanitation and hygiene, due to COVID-19 pandemic. So overcrowding itself is an issue, and we have known the importance, or the impacts of overcrowding on the spreading of diseases. So all these has facilitated disease bearing organisms, and our livelihood and our change in our lifestyle patterns have also led to introduction of non communicable diseases in the society. So, when we are talking about diseases, our first look out at understanding our disease is mapping of environmental information. So, normally, what we do is we map the disease as such. So, we just to know where disease cases are high, where disease cases are low. So, and also, to understand the administrative and allocation issues when it comes to disease management problems. So that is what being done over the past few years. But to interrelate our disease patterns, and to understand what are the causative factors of disease in an environment, we have to understand the environmental linkages for a disease in the environment. So to consider and to identify the environmental factors, we have to first identify the region where a disease is persistent, and then we have to identify the factors that contribute to the propagation of the disease in a particular area or particular region or a particular society. And we also have to understand that these environmental influencing factors may be available in the air, may be available in the water, sand, the sea, vegetation, as well as they may be promoted by the climatic factors as well as anthropogenic introductions. So, when we are looking at a disease pattern as such in an environment, we have to try to link all the biotic and the abiotic and the anthropogenic factors that are favorable for a disease to spread in an environment. So, this disease can be vector-borne disease, this disease can be a communicable disease, or a non-communicable disease. So first we have to understand the environmental setting in which the disease is promoting itself and the disease is sustaining itself in a human population. And to understand such kind of information, first we have to know what is the source of the environmental influence, from where we have to track down these sources, and how these sources can be brought about into a map in an environmental region or in an environmental situation. So for that we have different sources like pollution sources, areas where if it is a point source pollution, we can detect the area of the point source. If it is a non-point source pollution, such as the vehicular emission or household burning or whatever, we can try to understand what are the sources or what are the areas where these pollution sources emanate from, and we can also identify the areas which are affected due to pollution. So, and then we can link this with the land cover and land use, how the land has been used, including vegetation changes, agriculture, forestry, soil types, and also settlement areas. Another source of information is the availability of water and water quality, and these can be either tested analytically or they can be identified through remotely sensed data availability. So, water quality is usually tested through analytical facilities where we collect samples from different regions and we test them in the laboratory, and those uh, results are linked in to these environmental factors that cause diseases. Again, usage of energy and the energy resources that are available, and how these energy resources are used at household level or at a regional level or at a state level or a national level. So we can map all these, and these can also be integrated as our environmental cost. Next, we have biological resources. Biological resources which include our habitats, reserved areas, protected areas, areas that are identified as recreational sites, areas that are identified as conservational sites, and as medicinal resources. So, all these biological resources, which tend to change over seasons, can also be used as a information for environmental resources. So once we know what these environmental resources are, once we know the rate at which these environmental factors influence a disease, then we can classify these environmental factors, and then we can link these environmental factors with the persistent disease, which may be either chronic or which may be endemic or an acute disease in a particular area. So where do we source out this information? So most of the information is sourced out through laboratory scale analysis or available secondary data files, or we collect some of the environmental information from satellite data. So this satellite data, we can go for the latest available satellite data to identify the presence of environmental resources in a region and to link it with our disease data. So the method of identifying these factors which affect the health is parallel or is almost equal to environmental, epidemiological, and biological parameter understanding. So mapping of the health, when you, especially any kind of health diseases, we deal with lower level issues. Lower level issues, that is, we go for small scale or regional scale analysis where we try to identify the impacts of a disease on a geographical scale. So first, any disease, rather than taking the disease count itself, first we try to take the disease count, then we try to identify what are the factors or what are the signs of the disease that are available in a geographical area, and then we observe the temporal pattern of the disease in that geographical area and related geographical area, which we call as time spatio-temporal activity or time space analysis. Then the behavioral changes either in a population or in a biological area or in other species, we can observe the behavioral changes as to how the disease is persistent in an area, and probably migration would have introduced the disease into a new area. So this kind of behavioral changes we try to observe in an area. Then we look at the population distribution, the size of the population, number of infected people in a population, and then the susceptible individuals in the population over a period of time and over a geographical space. So this gives an idea as to what the health issue may be and how the health issue has grown or how the health issue has reduced over a period of time in a geographical entity. So for this, we go for a larger scope of study known as environmental health geography. So environmental health geography encompasses environment, health, and geography. So environment are the issues that I have been talking about. Health is lot of a huge amount of epidemiological disease that are persistent in a small geographical area or in a larger geographical area. So we know a geographical area itself, when we mean geography of an area, that area describes the landforms, the soil structure, the water, its quality, the different types of water bodies, either surface or groundwater bodies, and the type of people, the human population that is available in a geographical area, the habits of the people, the habitat of the people, the related biodiversity, the related vegetation, and everything in a particular geographical area. So changes in a geographical area lead to changes in the livelihood pattern, and leads to the vulnerability of the population for a disease, and thereby a lot of changes in the environment also occurs, which may introduce diseases and new diseases in the area. So here we are talking about something known as, when we are talking about something known as satellite data or spatial data, we go for a geographical related data. That is what we call as georeferenced information. So georeferenced information is any information that is in particular to our geographical area. So if you have a denoted geographical area and we are talking about a disease in that denoted geographical area, any information pertaining to that area is known as georeferenced information. So this gives us the dimensionality of the environment in the area, and also the health in the area, and how environment is linking to the health, the well-being of the community in that area. So that is what we call as environment and health linkage. And when we know that if a positive change is reducing in an environment and the health balance, if the balance is reduced, or if we observe any kind of imbalance in this pattern, it pinpoints to health issues in an area. And this health issues may either describe the intensity or the extent of the cause or the effect of a health issue in that area. So the intensity of a disease, the likeliness of the disease to spread in the area, the likeliness of the environmental factors to promote the disease spread in the area, and the resistance of the community to the disease in terms of their immunity, or if at all there has been a larger cause of the disease in a community, or it has been impacted at a larger scale, the resilience of the community to come back to their status is also observed through these environmental health linkages. So these, how can we come about these environmental health linkages? We need maps. We need maps that can highlight what are the local issues, that can highlight the surrounding environment, or the dependent environmental factors for a particular population. And we can also highlight what the exposure might be for that population to a disease. So the exposure can be a waste disposal site, the exposure can be a contaminated water body, the exposure can be degraded vegetation, or any climate induced or seasonal induced disease in that area. So this kind of exposure can be derived through maps, as well as more diffuse issues like if there's a radiation destruction, or if there's a reduction in any of the air quality level, or reduction in the atmospheric ozone level, which has led to a lot of skin exposures, skin diseases. So that also can be observed through maps. So thanks to our satellite data. So this is one example of a study known as a headlamp study, where the relationship between the environment and health factors, and the how this relationship can be modeled using different weightages, and how these models has led to a larger policy formulation and a larger decision making. So this is how the entire process goes by when we are talking about environmental linkages or environmental health linkages in a particular geographical region. So what we try to identify is specific environmental and specific health related information which may directly or indirectly promote a disease in a particular area. So for that delineation of these factors, we have to know about the existent population and the existent dependence of the population on the surrounding environment, and the uh, the number of disease cases in that area, and how these disease cases has either increased or decreased in that particular human population in an area. So that we try to link with all the causative environmental factors, and for these linkages we can use a lot of support study like already available demographic data, or confounding data information, or other monitoring data that is available, or surveys either in form of individual surveys that are done for research studies, or large scale surveys that are taken from ICMR or WHO or whatever. So we try to apply all these, and we try to delineate the disease study in a particular geographical area using environmental causative factors. So this may lead to a regional policy action, or this may also lead to a national level or a global level policy decision making. So this is how normally environmental relationship is identified. So these are some of the case studies which I am presenting here, where satellite data has been used to identify disease conditions, prevailing disease conditions, or predictive disease conditions in a geographical area. So this is a study that is carried out for Chinese tree flu, and this is used as a predictive analysis using vegetation of a particular region, and how this vegetation is linked to the depletion of the trees, or degradation of the trees because of tree flu in a particular area. So most of the environmental information that we derive are from either geological sources, or topographical sources, soil information study, or land use and land cover information study. So these are the commonly used information sources which pertain to health. So geological data, they help us to detect radiation sources, or seismic activity, or changes in the geological area. So they may be useful in planning and assessing rehabilitation sites, assessing health sectors, or identifying vulnerable groups, or calculating the risk among a population. Similarly, topographical maps, they tell us about the elevation, they tell about the presence of vegetation, areas that are prone to landslides, erosion, dust pollution, or flooding, or whatever. So these kind of data help us in identifying the basic landforms. Then we know soil maps are available from different sources like FAO and UNEP and agriculture department and all that. So this tells us the relationship between the soil type and the vegetation in an area, the moisture holding capacity of the soil, and the stagnation of water in terms of the monsoon, and also cultivation patterns in an area. And when we are talking about cultivation, we can also relate them to agricultural field floodings, or cropland mapping, and any kind of zoonotic diseases, or any kind of diseases that emanate due to flooding in an agricultural area. Again, land use and land cover pattern maps, they tell us about how the land area is being utilized by human population in terms of settlement, agricultural activity, or the increase in the land use area, urban spread, urban rural gradients, and the utilization of land resources, encroachment of water bodies, and all that can be derived from a land use land cover maps. Then similarly, we have biodiversity maps. especially biodiversity atlases that tell us about habitats and species availability, species extinction, and reserved areas and all those, and water resources map that tell us not only about water supply, water stagnation, sanitation schemes, they also tell us about the availability of the surface and groundwater in a particular area. And of late, we have the air quality maps that are available through SEDAC or NASA or UNEP and individual agencies, which tell us about the concentrations of different air pollutions, either gaseous or particulate matter air pollutions. And over the recent years, these air quality maps are used to link respiratory diseases, respiratory cancers, and related growth factors in children. And also we have information about how environmental regulations laws are managed over a particular region, or where new laws have to be enforced, where existing laws are enough, and how we can use these laws to mitigate pollution in an area, or to conserve the biodiversity in an area. So these are also very important. And in the recent years, indicator mapping has become a very prominent among researchers, where we try to identify the indicators, that is socio-economic indicators, or age related indicators, or insurance health insurance related indicators, to identify target population and to identify the populations at risk. So these indicators mainly are based on economic aspects, social aspects, literacy aspects, life expectancy aspects, and the work profile or gender profile of a particular area, and especially communities that are living on the urban fringes, which are very vulnerability communities, and very vulnerable communities, and also these communities, nomadic populations, ethnic groups, and migratory populations. All these are populations that are vulnerable, and they are also deprived of health benefits from a government or nationalized health benefits. So these kind of mapping is also done through GIS and remote sensing. So these are different sources of data where we can get sources. So environmental data explorer through UNEP, they provide a lot of data or map which can be used in studying health related spatial information. So this is one of the studies which have been conducted in my laboratory, that is sickle cell disease patterns, and how spatial and environmental assessment has done to identify the tribal accessibility and socio-economic factors that influence tribal diseases in the Nilgiris of Tamil Nadu. So here we can see the different tribal populations, and these maps show what are the areas. So the red in patches indicate areas that are high risk zones for sickle cell anemia disease in among the tribal population of Nilgiris. And this is the seasonal mapping, how seasons affect the accessibility of the tribal population in the hilly terrain to reach the sickle cell anemia specific health centers. And you can see how the terrain is during dry conditions and during wet conditions, and how monsoon uh, and land accessibility itself is a huge challenge for these people to avail health facilities in their region, and how this itself has led to a lot of life loss in the area. And this map shows the different tribal settlements and the health centers that are present, the specific health centers for sickle cell anemia disease. So this is one of the studies that was conducted in our laboratory to improve the livelihood conditions and the accessibility, road and terrain conditions, so that the tribal population can access the health centers in the area. This is another study which we had conducted in our laboratory to assess the impact of water quality, drinking water quality on the growth of children. So you can see these are the high risk zones where drinking water quality is bad, which poses a great threat to under 5 children. So, under 5 children, as we know, are frequently affected by diarrhea, cold, cough, and influenza. And this has also led to a lot of children being absent in schools, and a lot of children not availing the educational facilities or health facilities in these regions. And hence water quality analysis was done in the schools and the local residential areas, and these water quality data was mapped, and cumulative risk zone study was done using drinking water quality indices. And then we try to identify the body mass index of the region of the children in these schools, and we try to identify a spatial relationship using statistical analysis as to how water quality has caused an impact on the uh, growth of the children in these affected regions. So we can see that most of the children are thin where water quality is poor in the region. So this is another map which we have used as a secondary source of information, satellite derived environmental indicators for particulate matter 2.5. And these you can see the Indian region has high range of particulate matter distribution in the area, and this data was used to identify respiratory cancers in the Western Ghats, Western region of Tamil Nadu. So we already had lung cancer cases from the Western regions of Tamil Nadu. So cases were reported at taluk levels from the Coimbatore and Tirupur regions, and you can see this is the impact of lung cancer and age specific impact of lung cancer in the study region. And we can see that Coimbatore region has high cases. This particular region has high cases, and integrating this with the air quality data that is obtained from SIDAC, particulate matter distribution data, we observed that a different region has more prominent uh, uh, exposure levels for lung cancer cases in that region. So, after a small spatial regression analysis was done to identify lung cancer, that is respiratory diseases, starting from nasal cancer to esophageal cancer and lung cancers, and how these diseases are associated with the behavioral aspects as well as the persistent particulate matter. So we were able to delineate two high risk zones in the study area. So this is again another study where breast cancer incidences were done among high income group population. The study was done conducted for Mysore region based on the socio-economic status of the population in Mysore region, and how socio-economic status plays a very important role in the occurrence of breast cancer among women, especially high income group women in the region. So this is another again another statistical multivariate statistical technique was applied to delineate the risk regions based on the risk factors. So I have just a few examples to show. of how we are integrating environmental factors and socio-economic factors to delineate both communicable as well as genetic disorders in small regions of South India. So, to conclude, I wish to say that remote sensing itself is a huge boon for health information studies, and the use of remote sensing uh, as a main source of data for health studies over the recent years, it has increased exponentially. And one of the major applications are the use of low spatial resolution indices. So where the indices derived indices such as indicators, water quality indicators, and soil indicators or vegetation indices, whatever these kind of indices help in describing the temporal disease patterns over a region. And also huge number of researches over the past few years show a great potential of high resolution images being employed to measure the local changes. So local changes where the geographical conditions also change, and these geographical conditions may be favorable or these geographical habitat changes may be favorable for the introduction or the development of diseases in a particular area. Again, remote sensing also plays a major role in the development of environmental monitoring systems. So these environmental monitoring systems may assist in detection patterns of epidemics in an area, or may assist in environmental planning for disease detections, or may also act as an early warning system in a particular area. So for this, over the recent years, environmental monitoring system has used the support of remote sensing for such kind of action plans. And another thing is the employment of satellite, not only the satellite data, both low scale satellite data or high scale satellite data, but the innovative use of such satellite data, linking it with spatial statistics or spatial modeling approaches, that itself is a new way or an innovative way of understanding disease patterns in an area. So for that, we have to use critical tools which are needed to create good opportunities, or these kind of critical statistical approaches help us in identifying regionalized disease conditions, regionalized action plans for populations that are affected by diseases. So with this, I wish to conclude that not only conventional epidemiological studies, but innovative epidemiological studies with the use of GIS, remote sensing, spatial techniques, and a statistical support system may help us in better planning for disease indicators, identifying environmental exposures in a region, and also in developing forecasting plan or developing an action plan, so that we can come about a better policy action in an area. So thank you for listening to me. This is my contact address and my email address. So for further queries, I hope you will be able to connect to me in the near future. Thank you very much.